Welcome to the entire class of SE Electronics and Computer Science Semester 3 for the subject Electronic Devices abbreviated ED with the subject code ECC 302. Today we continue further with module number 5 titled Rectifiers and Filters, in which we shall be covering unit number 5.2, that is filters. We had already covered unit number 5.1 previously. This particular unit number 5.2 discusses several different types of filters. Today, our focus shall be only on the first type of a filter, that is the capacitor filter. Now, before we start with today's video lecture session about the capacitor, also called as the C filter, the only prerequisite knowledge which you need to have is a very good understanding about the working of the full wave bridge type rectifier circuit, which was covered in lecture number 6 on behalf of unit number 5.1. The YouTube video channel link as well as the QR code are both given on the screen. So starting off, the first main question that we need to answer is, why do we need filters, or why are filters required? Now this particular diagram on the screen shows you the output voltage for a center tapped and for a bridge type full wave rectifier circuit. If we take a closer look at this particular rectified output voltage, what we observe is that it is not exactly DC. Although you may say that it is in quadrant number 1 and its value is changing positively from 0 to Vm, yes, the value is changing. It is not flat, it is not still, it is not also constant. The value is also going down to 0 at the particular instance of the origin, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, etc. So what you basically get is nothing but a pulsating DC output voltage from the output of any full wave center tapped or any full wave bridge type rectifier circuit. So rectified output voltage from the center tapped or the bridge type full wave rectifier circuit is pulsating, having both DC component given by the average value as well as the AC component given by the RMS value. We have already seen previously that a majority of practical real-life electronic devices, gadgets, and systems all need a stable, smooth, and a continuous power supply for their operation. Although the batteries provide a stable and a smooth power supply, the problem comes that batteries are definitely not at all continuous. So we need to again go back to the AC power supply, which we all get in our homes 24/7 to ensure that the power supply is continuous. But since again these gadgets work on DC, we need to convert AC into DC. To enable this particular conversion, we took the help of the previously studied circuits of the center tapped as well as the bridge type full wave rectifier circuits. Now, the output of these particular rectifiers has definitely a DC component which was derived to be VDC, but at the same time, it also has an RMS value of the AC component present along with the DC component. And this particular output voltage is pulsatingly DC with a very high ripple content of approximately gamma is equal to 0.4834 or 48.34%. We had actually derived this equation earlier. The problem with this very high ripple content is it is not suitable for these electronic devices, these systems and the gadgets, because not only it can cause them to be misused, but they can also be damaged. Also, their operation becomes completely erratic under such pulsating voltages. So we use filters because these circuits, they actually remove the RMS value of the AC component from the output, leaving only the DC component intact. That is why we actually require filters. The syllabus has different types of filters such as the capacitor, also called as the C-type filter, the inductor, also called as the L-type filter, The inductor capacitor filter, also called as the LC filter, which is basically a combination of the C filter as well as the L filter. And finally, we have the capacitor inductor capacitor, that is the CLC filter, also called as the pi filter. The syllabus focuses on studying the circuit diagrams, the operating principle, the working, expressions for the average or the DC output voltage, expressions for the average or the DC output current, along with their own ripple factor given by the term gamma. So, starting off with the first or the capacitor filter, the diagram is as shown. If you are able to recall, the bridge type full wave rectifier circuit has several advantages over the center tap full wave rectifier circuit. So, all the filter circuits will be only showing a bridge type full wave rectifier. So, if we just start the drawing or how to sketch this, it is basically extremely easy. You start by first sketching the 230 volts AC input power supply as shown. It will be 230 volts AC 50 Hertz. Now this supply is connected to a step down transformer primary winding. This voltage is basically what we call as the input voltage VN. The secondary output or the secondary windings are connected at certain designated points for a bridge configuration of the full wave circuit. So we have diode D1, diode D3, diode D2 as well as diode D4. The entire rectified output voltage is then given to a capacitor filter as shown, and then it is given to the load. Observe that the capacitor filter is connected exactly in parallel or in shunt with the load. Although it will not make much of a difference if you connect the capacitor after the load. However, the standard notation goes like this. You first have the source or the input power supply. You then have transformers. Then you have this particular rectifier circuit. Then you have the filter. And in the end, you have the load. VL, nothing but VDC, is the load voltage, which is nothing but the average DC output voltage, as well as IL is nothing but the load current, also given by the DC or the average current as shown. By using Ohm's law, it is very easy to understand. RL is equal to VL upon IL, which is further equal to VDC upon the value IDC. So before we start by understanding how the capacitor filter helps to minimize the particular ripple content, let us take a brief review about what the capacitor is and how it actually behaves. A capacitor having two parallel plates with a dielectric material between them is as shown. Here, Vc of t indicates the voltage varying with time across the capacitor. The small v is chosen purposely because this is nothing but the instantaneous value defined at each and every point in time. C stands for capacitor, and this is the voltage across it. And you have a current given by the value IC of t flowing through it. Both are currently varying with time. The equations that govern Vc of t and Ic of t are as follows. You have Ic of t is equal to C dVc of t by dt, meaning that the current that is passing through the capacitor is proportional to the rate of change of voltage across it. Now, this equation clearly means that if the voltage across it is DC, then the current will be zero because the derivative of a constant term will be actually zero. So this explains the particular reason why capacitors block DC, but they allow AC to pass. Because when Vc of t fluctuates, you will be having a definite constant over here, dVc of t by dt. And that constant multiplied by C gives you the current. If we just rearrange the terms, we get the voltage is nothing but 1 upon C integral the current through the capacitor with time. So these are the equations that basically govern the current voltage equation for the capacitor. The second main important equation will be the capacitive reactance Xc, plotted as a function of the frequency f. We are all very familiar with this equation. Xc is equal to 1 upon j omega c, or if we take the modulus sign, we get modulus of Xc is equal to 1 upon 2 pi Fc. This is nothing but the capacitive reactance as a function of the applied signal frequency across the capacitor. Now, with 2 pi being a constant, C being the capacitance value, which will not change once it is now manufactured, you get Xc will be inversely proportional to the frequency, meaning as the frequency f increases, Xc will decrease, but as the frequency f decreases, Xc will now increase. Firstly, as f tends towards 0 on the starting part, Xc will tend to go towards infinity. And secondly, as f tends to go towards infinity towards the second half, Xc will tend to go towards 0. So this equation can be plotted as shown. This is a non-linear hyperbolic curve which we get, that is showing the capacitive reactance varying with the frequency f. Now, trying to understand the entire operation, what here I've done is I've basically replaced the complicated circuit part by a simple block. So this is nothing but the full wave rectifier circuit. This can be center tap, this can be bridge type. And this is the output voltage obtained across it, which is nothing but pulsating DC, having multiple peak points given by Vm, 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 etc. Now such pulsations or such a pulsating DC voltage is applied across the capacitor. Here we are simply showing the load RL with the average or the DC load current given by IL and the average or the DC load voltage given by the value VL. Now, when the first output half cycle arrives, capacitor C will quickly charge to the peak value Vm. Reason for the capacitor charging quickly is because the internal resistance of the forward bias diodes is practically zero or is very, very small. So C will take a very less time to charge and it will charge quickly. So the capacitor will quickly charge to Vm. Now, as the output voltage decreases, C cannot hold the charge. And also, it cannot discharge through the diodes because now from pi by 2 to pi, the diodes are now turning off because the voltage is now decreasing. However, due to this closed loop, the capacitor finds an alternate path to discharge to the value RL. So when C was fully charged, it will try to discharge through RL. But before C discharges through RL completely, you have a second half cycle coming which will charge the capacitor back. This entire operation can be graphically shown by the following diagram. So what you see is when the load voltage is plotted as a function of time, you have these black colored dotted lines which are nothing but over here rectified output voltage. The peak value is Vm and the average or the DC value is simply given by the value VDC. So when the first positive half cycle arrives between the intervals from 0 to pi by 2, the capacitor voltage charges right up till the value Vm. However, as the voltage decreases, the capacitor will now start to discharge through the load RL, and this particular discharge path is shown by this falling line. The slope of this discharge path is completely dependent upon the value of the load RL. If RL is very small, C will discharge rapidly. This curve will be very steep. However, if RL value is extremely large, C will take naturally a very long time to discharge. Hence, this curve will have a lesser slope. So no matter what is the value for RL, C will definitely discharge through RL. So C will now discharge and at a value, it will come down to point B. Before the capacitor can discharge still further and go down to 0, what we see is the second output rectified half cycle for V out appears, and this will again charge the capacitor back to the peak voltage Vm. So from point A, although the voltage is now decreasing to point B, it is once again restored back to its original value at point C. And at point C, again, as the diodes become slowly reverse biased because the signal is now decreasing, capacitor will again start to discharge and it will come down to point D. Before the capacitor can discharge completely, the voltage is again picked up by the third half cycle, and this voltage will again reach from point D to point A. So this particular graph continues further till we have each and every half cycle covered. So what we see is the entire pulsations or the entire fluctuations which were varying from 0 to Vm have now been decreased to a very small value, which is given by the numerical expression VR peak to peak. This is nothing but the peak to peak ripple voltage. So all these variations have been further minimized. The time constant T1 is the time taken for the capacitor to charge from point B to point C, whereas T2 is the time constant, which is the time taken for the capacitor to now discharge from point C to point D. Of course, for every single half cycle in the starting, T1 and T2 will be different. But for every consecutive or for every alternately half cycle, T1 will be the same throughout, T2 will also be the same throughout. The only drawback associated with the capacitor filter is, although the ripple content is minimized to a great extent, it draws a very heavy current through the forward bias PN junction diodes. Reason being that the internal resistance of these diodes is extremely small. So when C will charge from points B to point C, from 0 to point A, and from point D to point E, and then so on, it will have a peak or a surge current which is flowing through the diode, because C, the capacitor, is known to prevent a sudden rate of change of voltage across it. And this is compensated by a spike or a surge or a sharp transient in the curve for the current. So whenever we have the capacitor charging during intervals T1 as shown, the current which it will draw will be very, very high. So this will give rise to current spikes, which the PN junction diodes, in fact, all the four PN junction diodes should be able to now withstand at each and every point in time. So if we just take a look at the operation, the capacitor C is connected in parallel or in shunt across the load RL. For the first positive half cycle, the capacitor C charges to the maximum peak signal value for Vm at point A. As the rectified output voltage decreases, capacitor C will now discharge to the load RL. And before capacitor C can discharge further at point B, the next positive half cycle soon appears, charging it to the peak value Vm given by point C. However, also, as this particular positive half cycle decreases, the capacitor C again discharges to the load RL. The slope of its discharge depends upon the numerical value for the load RL. And before the capacitor C can discharge further at point C, the next positive half cycle appears once again, charging it to the peak signal amplitude given by Vm at point D. So what we see is ripple content is minimized to a great extent due to the rapid charging and discharging action of the capacitor C. The standard expression for the average of the DC output voltage is given by VDC is equal to Vm brackets open 4FRLC divided by 1 plus 4FRL into C. Please keep in mind that this expression is completely different from a standard rectifier output voltage, because you now have the presence of a capacitor also, where VDC is nothing but the average of the DC voltage given in volts. Vm is the maximum or the peak value of the secondary voltage also given in volts. F is the frequency of the AC supply, and this by default will be at 50 Hertz. RL is nothing but resistance value of the load, and C is nothing but the capacitance value of the capacitor. So this gives you equation for the value VDC. If the term 4FRL into C is sufficiently higher than 1, then we can make a very close approximation in which VDC would be approximately equal to Vm. The ripple factor gamma is given by gamma is equal to 1 divided by 4 root 3 F into RL into C. Now, one point that is very interesting here is 4 root 3 being constant, the frequency also being a constant 50 hertz, the capacitance also being a constant. This particular ripple factor gamma is inversely proportional to the load RL, meaning if the load RL is very high, gamma is very low. Conversely, if the load RL is light, meaning the value is far low or less, the value for gamma will be ultimately very, very high. The main goal or the main objective is to have an extremely small value of the entire ripple factor gamma, which should be as small as possible. Ideally, the value of gamma should be zero, but particularly since it cannot be achieved, gamma should be kept as small as possible. So this leads us to a particular conclusion that the load RL, only if it is sufficiently high, the capacitor C can work in the best possible way, keeping this particular value for gamma ripple factor extremely low. We have the expressions for the ripple components or the ripple voltage given by VR peak is equal to VDC upon 4 FRL into C, whereas the RMS value is given by VDC divided by 4 root 3 F into RL into C. One very interesting point which you would like to note here is, although we say that the RMS value is directly derived from the peak value, you do not have a root 2, but you have a root 3. Reason is that the ripple voltage waveform, as you all saw, was not sinusoidal in nature. It was in fact triangular. And for all triangular waveforms, you have the term over here root 3. Had the ripple been perfectly sinusoidal, you would be having the term VR of RMS is equal to VR peak divided by the value root 2. The features or the different characteristics for the capacitor filter are: it minimizes ripple content in the output load voltage, which is VL or the value VDC, to the smallest possible extent because the capacitor is connected in a shunt or a typical parallel connection just across the load RL. Ripple factor is inversely proportional to the load RL as evident from the ripple factor expression gamma. It works very well for extremely large loads or for extremely heavy loads with a high value for RL, which results in an extremely low value of the ripple factor gamma. It requires minimum possible hardware using only a single capacitor C. Hence, capacitor filters are very easy to design and very easy to install. However, drawbacks are the large capacitor values tend to be leaky. They show a lot of leakage, and of course, the diodes need to have a very high peak current rating or a very high surge current rating, because when capacitor C charges, it charges quickly due to an almost negligible forward resistance of the PN junction diodes. So the charging curve will have extremely heavy spikes. And finally, some steps which may be useful for the analysis for a capacitor filter are as follows. Firstly, always assume that the RMS value at the primary side is always 230 volts AC 50 hertz unless otherwise mentioned. If you say we're in the US, this value would have been 120 volts AC 60 hertz. Once you have the value for V1 RMS, it is very easy to get the secondary RMS value using the step down transformer turns ratio N1 is to N2, which will be normally given to you. So we have the standard transformer equation V1 upon V2 is equal to N1 upon N2. Once you are able to calculate the RMS value of the secondary voltage, the maximum or the peak voltage Vm can now be obtained as root 2 multiplied by V2 RMS. This Vm is nothing but V2 peak value. Once you get the maximum or the peak secondary voltage, The average or the DC output voltage value can be easily obtained as VDC is equal to VM, brackets open. This is 4F RLC, the whole term divided by 1 plus 4 into F into RL into C. The average or the DC value of the output voltage can be given by Ohm's law, where IDC is equal to VDC upon the value RL. Ripple factor calculation is completely independent of steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 because you only need the component values of RL and C. This is given by gamma is equal to 1 upon 4 root 3 into F into RL into C. And if you are asked to calculate ripple voltage, then the equations are the same. The peak value of this particular ripple voltage is given by VDC upon 4 into F into RL into C, whereas the whereas the RMS value of this particular ripple voltage is now given by VR RMS is equal to VDC divided by 4 root 3 into F into RL into C. Let us understand the whole process by taking a numerical example as shown. Now for the given problem, we need to first calculate the average or the DC value of the output or the load voltage, that is VL, or the value VDC. We need to calculate the average or the DC value of the output or the load current, that is IL, or the value IDC. We need to calculate ripple factor gamma, and we need to calculate the peak to peak value of the ripple voltage VR peak to peak. Now this particular value, peak to peak value of the ripple voltage, can easily be obtained from the peak value of the ripple voltage, because this value, when you multiply it by 2, gives you the peak to peak value of the ripple voltage. So what we are given? We are given that the AC supply is 230 volts AC, 50 hertz. We are given that the transformer is a typical step down transformer having a turns ratio 10:1. We are given a full wave bridge type rectifier configuration having diodes D1, D2, D3, and D4. For this particular problem, it is simply assumed that the internal resistance of the windings and the diodes is almost zero. So Rx and Rf do not have to be taken into account at all. The capacitance C is given by 330 microfarads. The load RL is given by 1.5 kilo ohms. The first thing we have to do is to calculate the DC output load current IL, or the value IDC, and the DC output or the load voltage given by VL, or the value VDC. Now, if you want to solve this from a strictly examination point of view and in a proper sequential way, this is how your approach has to be. Firstly, always mention data given. So your numerical answer starts with data given. You are given V1 RMS, that is 230 volts AC, 50 hertz. You are given N1 is to N2 is equal to 10:1. You are also given the values of C and RL, 330 microfarads, and RL is equal to 1.5 kilo ohms. Here, the internal resistance of the transformer, secondary winding, and the PN junction diode in the forward bias mode of operation is ignored, giving Rx and Rf both as 0. Once you have all the data given, it becomes very easy to calculate the secondary RMS voltage from the transformation ratio V1 upon V2 is equal to N1 by N2. So this gives you V2 RMS is equal to 23 volts AC. Always show one single step working, because the examiner needs to understand how the final value has come. And once you get the RMS value for the secondary, the peak value is obtained by V2 peak, also called as VM, is nothing but V2 into V2 RMS, root 2 into V2 RMS, that is nothing but root 2 multiplied by 23 volts AC. So you get the maximum or the peak voltage as 32.53 volts. Once VM is currently there with you, it becomes very easy to calculate the value for the DC voltage. So the DC voltage here is VDC is equal to VM, brackets open, 4 into F into RL into C, divided by 1 plus 4 into F into RL into C. Since you need to calculate this, it is always beneficial to show one single step working, because once you basically lay out all these terms, entering the value onto the calculator becomes a very easy task. So this gives the average or the DC output voltage value as VDC is equal to 32.2 volts. By Ohm's law, the average value of the output or the DC current is given by IDC is equal to VDC upon RL, which is simply given by 32.2 upon 1.5 into 10 raised to 3. Keep in mind, the load RL was expressed in terms of kilo ohms. Kilo ohms means 1.5 into 10 raised to 3 plus 3. So this gives us the average or the DC current value as IDC is equal to 21.47 milliamperes. So here we have completed the first phase. We have obtained the DC values of the output voltage or the load voltage, as well as the output current or the load current. Ripple factor gamma is given by gamma is equal to 1 upon 4 root 3 into F into R into C. So giving one step working gives us 1 divided by 4 root 3 into 50 into 1.5 into 10 raised to 3 into 330 into 10 raised to minus 6. Putting the entire term in the calculator gives us ripple factor gamma is equal to 0.00583. It is always advisable to take around 5 to 6 places after the decimal point, because these values are typically very small. You can also express ripple factor gamma as a typical percentage by simply multiplying the above term by the value 100, giving gamma is equal to 0.583%. Now, what is the physical significance of getting gamma is equal to 0.583%? Well, recall that for both the center tap and the bridge type rectifiers, the ripple factor gamma was 0.4834, or it was 48.3%, which has now been drastically decreased down to simply gamma is equal to 0.00583. Both the terms can be seen, or 48.34% is now drastically decreased down to 0.583%, which is a huge decrease in the value of the unwanted ripple component in the final DC output voltage stage. So from a ripple factor of 48.34%, we have managed to decrease the ripple to a mere 0.583%. And finally, ripple voltage VR peak is given by VDC upon 4FR into C. Putting the values back again, the peak voltage value is given by 32.2 divided by 4 into 50 into 1.5 into 10 raised to 3 into 330 into 10 raised to minus 6. So the ripple peak voltage value is given by 0.3253 volts. Now this is nothing but the peak value. The peak to peak value is simply obtained by multiplying this by 2, doubling this. So we get the peak to peak ripple voltage is given by VR peak to peak is equal to 0.651 volts. Now, what is this physically saying? This says that with the average or the DC voltage value of VDC is equal to 32.2 volts available at the load, the overall variation is only a mere 0.651 volts, which means the minimum DC value is 31.87, while the maximum value will be 32.53, which indicates an excellent ripple suppression by the capacitor filter. We got this value by simply subtracting 0.3253 from 32.2, and we got the maximum value by simply adding 0.3253 with 32.2. So the overall power supply is only changing between 31.87 and 32.53. So the variations are extremely less, and it is all thanks to the capacitor filter. So as we end the entire session, you were easily able to see how by using a typical capacitor filter, the entire DC voltage was actually getting stabilized. The list of textbooks, reference books, as well as the online material remains the same. That will be all. Thank you very much.